And we are live. What's going on, everybody? You are now tuned in to the Paging Dr. Chanda podcast, where we talk about all things related to mental health, the culture, and overall wellness. Y'all, I'm so excited for today because I have some amazing guests who came all the way down from Philly in North Jersey to be here with the podcast. And so, fellas, I'm wondering if y'all can introduce yourselves.
Yes, my name is D. Reed. Well, my name is Douglas Reed, aka D. Reed. Retired military, retired out of Federal Bureau of Prisons. Uh, Went through Black Man Hill as a client, and now I am a mental health advocate.
Love it.
And I am Reggie Howard, Senior Program Coordinator at Black Men Hill. I was one of the first people that got that free therapy for Black men call. So I was in the first cohort, and been on the team for about 2 years now. So I wanted to serve the organization that served me.
That is so amazing. Just to hear that free therapy is being afforded, especially to Black people, especially to Black men, like that really just makes my heart smile. And just to see that there are people who benefited from that program who are reaching back in order to help further develop and organize the program. I think that's amazing, fellas. And I really do want to give you your flowers like right now on the podcast because y'all are doing great work.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And thank you for having us too.
For sure. Y'all excited?
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am.
So let's get into it then. Listen, I was telling D Reed that it's literally been a long time coming. Like I've been wanting to have Black Men Hill on the podcast because again, like this is amazing. Like Black men are in need of the services that y'all are providing. Y'all are doing an amazing work. Like it's legit. Like I love it. And that really leads me to my first segment. So if you all have been listeners of the Paging Dr. Chanda podcast, you all know that the first segment is the Hot Off the Press segment. That is where we talk about mental health in the news and pop culture. Not everybody gets their news from the Shade Room. There are other news sources out there. So I want us to expand our reach and to talk about other things that are happening in the world, especially as it relates to Black people. So I was actually, fellas, I was looking at some research online, specifically from a news source, I believe in the DC area. And they were talking about how suicide rates are increasingly and alarmingly rising in Black men specifically. And I think that definitely that definitely pushes back on that statement that, oh, suicide is a white thing. I don't know if y'all ever heard that people say that before, but I heard it a lot, especially kind of growing up and, being younger and hearing people talk about suicide as if it was just a white thing. And so I'm wondering, based on the research that's coming out about this, I wonder if that sparks any thoughts for you and how we can start to mitigate that.
You want me to go, D. Reed? I can lead.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, lead off.
And I know why D. Reed wanted to go with me going first because just of my story. I had 2 suicide attempts in my previous, I guess, earlier life that stimulated of not thinking therapy or mental health was for me and just, within the Black community, just thinking like, all right, well, if I sleep it off or pray it away or whatever the case may be, then I'll start to feel better. And so a lot of the times it's what you said, when you don't get the mental health resources or you don't connect the two between it. So I was on a bridge and I also went from cutting, also went to taking, medication to try to, overdose and all these different things to just try to numb pain. And with a lot of the times when we see things within our community, like I hear it, I'm old enough to know better, but young enough to still relate. So I still hear it in all the music and all what the young boys is listening to, where that is all pain. And I don't even think they even realize that. It's like, oh, we probably need to be at a crisis center. We probably need to be at a therapy office. We probably need to be in all these different places. But again, and that's sort of why I think Black Men Hill exists, is because we have to make it look like what we need to get the healing from. And so stepping up as an advocate is to speak for those voices that is like, nah, bro, this is where, where we relate to this. This is for you. Like, no, we need this because we need to be healed in our community. That's sort of why we going on our King's Corner tour, is to bring healing to them corners of the communities and trying to make sure that brothers know, like, no, we need this. This is for us. And we need to get the healing so we can bring it back to our families.
Yeah. And I mean, Reg, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, because Reg has an amazing story. And then even for myself, you kind of stated before, like, the suicide being a white thing. I'm a baby boomer, so we didn't talk much about suicide within the Black community at all. And then to hear the vulnerability now, how people are talking about it, but then, once again, how through society and everything that we go through within our society, how it's affecting us, for a young man, to have, be wanting to take his life because of the struggles or what they're dealing with, so I find it, I found it kind of, confusing for the simple fact that, in our earlier time, we didn't talk about it, but now we're talking about it, but yet our numbers increase though, so, what kind of signs are those giving us? What are the signs? And then how do we, based on, I never had a suicide attempt, but talking to people and just listening and just being educated, like they say, you're not going to stop somebody from having suicide. That has to come from themselves. But, what do we do for that prevention? Or what are some of the things that we can actually prepare ourselves with our loved ones to make sure that they're in a space where they feel comforted, and they're able to deal with whatever struggles they have.
Yeah. Yeah, and so like I love how you bring up the preventative nature of this work, because I think it's great for us to have like the research and the statistics talking about what the numbers look like pertaining to Black men and suicide. The panel discussions are great, like all these things are amazing, but also we need to do the work. That's why the roles that you fellas have is so important. It's so imperative for us to have people who are in the trenches, who are actually going to these different community settings in order to pour out to these people and to pour out to Black men and to let them know, I've experienced emotions before too. I've had 2 suicide attempts as well. And so that's why I think like what y'all are doing, I can't say it enough. I think that's why it's like so profound. Yeah. Reggie, can you tell us a bit more about your suicide attempts?
Yeah, no, and I nothing is never off limit with me with those stories, because I definitely want to make sure I help somebody, because it came from not having my father in my life, the pressure of becoming a father, and not wanting to be like a deadbeat, but also don't want to be a present deadbeat that's just there, that can't do nothing for your child. And so I felt my children were better, or my child at the time. I have 2 sons now, but my oldest son at the time was better off without me, because at least I wouldn't have that pressure. And a lot of the times I try to explain to people that don't understand the suicide ideation is that you just want the pain to stop. It's not that you don't want to be here. You feel like the only way of not the pain to stop is to not be here. And so it just was the pressure of becoming a father, become not wanting to create the broken household that I came from. And me and my now wife, and who is my son's mother, are now together. But that wasn't when we were 19, being a first time father, first time parents, and trying to figure it out. And that pressure was just surmounting, and it led to me like texting a few of my friends, like, take care of my son, I don't want to be here anymore. And luckily the friends got me off the bridge, but that still didn't give me a job, still didn't give me a car, still didn't get me out of my mom's house. It still didn't give me the things and tools that I needed to be a whole healthy human being. What I now know is I should have been at someone's crisis center, because I was ready to check out. Like, I was going, and I remember the feeling. And if I'm being transparent, so I can't say that ideation don't come up every so often, but I have now the tools and preventative measures and support systems in place to prevent that ideation from coming and seeping in through different channels. So I think it's so crucial with even platforms like yourselves of having these conversations. And I don't know as many people know about Black Men Hill in the emphasis stages. It was started by Black women who dealt with trauma from Black men, or dealt with situations from their fathers, their husbands, or even seeing children in their family grow up. And the Black woman held it down, was like, you know what, I need to try to help my fellow kings, try to help my fellow brothers to get the healing in the community, because we know we need to reinstate them in their rightful place.
Man, we just gonna jump right into it, because y'all like I just want to take a second to pause and just say I appreciate both of you for being vulnerable, because I know that that's not easy, especially when society tells us that Black men always have to have it together, that they always have to be strong. You can't show emotion, right? And so like for you fellas to be on the podcast and talking about like I've experienced this, I've had suicidal ideations, I've been through the Black Men Heal program, that takes a significant level of vulnerability. So I just want to name that and say I appreciate it. But that leads to my first kind of question as we segue into the topic and really start digging more into the mental health of Black men. And Reggie, you kind of already alluded to this, but the experience of the advocate or the professional who's helping other people in the room, right? So Black men who are helping other Black men in their emotions. Sometimes what I hear as a clinician is that, like, professionals can't help me because they don't have the experiences. They never went through suicide. They never been to a therapist or whatever. And I wonder, like, if again, you guys can be as vulnerable as you like with this question, but how has your personal experiences made it that much more valuable to other people that you're serving?
I mean, I can comment on that because I think just based on the way I came up, it's, we pray about everything. So just pray it away. You know what I mean? So, go to church, you get, pastor or somebody to lay hands, but the pastor is not a clinician. A pastor is not a psychiatrist. A pastor is not a therapist. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, just what Red said, we talk about those burdens and everything that we have on. And even the word says, place all your cares and concerns on me. I mean, one of the reasons why it's stated that because they don't belong to us. So if you actually get into a situation or you're going to see a therapist, then that's the opportunity to release some of those things that are bothering you. That's the opportunity for a therapist to tell you the coping skills that you can deal with for the traumas that you face. And most of the time we found out in our virtual free space, we talk about this King's Corner tour, that a lot of the traumas that men have or things that happened when they were a child or happened when they were a young man. Even for myself, like, I carried the death of my father. My father was killed when I was 4 years old. Now, I wasn't there. I don't remember that. But what I do remember is the oak tree that was there at the funeral. What I do remember was the time that I spent, with my friends or whatever, wishing I did have a dad, and all the pain that brought on me. And I carried that for 40 something years. And going through Black Men Heal, I learned how to release that. And it felt, and that's why I became an advocate for it, because it felt so good to release that. I shed tears all the time. Reds laughs at me. I'm like Jeremiah. I'm the weeping prophet. You know what I mean?
Come on, prophet.
But because the thing is, it's an opportunity for us to be free. We don't have to carry that on us. And people are educated. People are the master's degree, JDs. I mean, we got our clinical supervisor. She has her JD. I mean, they have the education and the background to deal with people like us and to give us the proper channels to take.
Can I add to that too? Because I think you posed a great question that kind of is shaping my career. So I was the guy that, you don't know about suicide because you haven't experienced it. So there's nothing you can tell me that come up around that. So I was complete full transparency, completely against therapy, the mental health system, and things of that nature. I was like, you know what? Y'all don't have the experience. I'm gonna just talk about it, which started me creating my podcast and having conversations around it. But it wasn't until I got into therapy and got the experience and seen the tools and the techniques, I was like, oh, there is value in this. And you can't just go talk to a friend and think it's going to be okay. Or you can't just talk to a family member and think it's going to be okay. And the analogy I give everybody all the time is if you see sports, you have the commentators that went to school, they studied communication and journalism, and they can talk about the game and critique the game. And then you got the players who played in the game who are now becoming, commentators, and they bring a different value of experience as well. The marriage is right there in between. If you can get a sports reporter who can learn how to play the game or learn from the experience of the players, and then you have the players who are learning the media side of it and learning the different tools. And I say that as a person that's in school now to try to become a therapist as well, because I want to use the personal experience and combine it with the clinical experience so that way we can deliver the most value as possible.
Yeah.
And if I can make a statement, and I think, Ray, you have a book as well.
Come on, book.
we talk about that later.
Don't forget, because I definitely want to hear about the book. But Reggie, based on what you were saying, though, I think you bring up such the value of having multiple people in multiple roles in order to kind of aid in this suicide crisis that we're experiencing in the nation. Because I do think that the therapists who may not have had that hands-on experience with it is just as valuable as a person who did. And that's why, like, I love that multidisciplinary approach, right? So at Black Men Heal, y'all are advocates who are part of the team. There are also clinicians a part of the team, psychologists. I believe y'all have psychiatrists as well.
I don't know everyone's credential offhand.
Okay,
So, it's a lot of them. Like you said, that multidiscipline. I'm still finding out that the stuff that people got that I didn't even know they had under their belt. They just found out that I was an author.
Oh, really? I love it because that just really speaks to the strengths of everybody, though, right? And so when we create like a melting pot of disciplines and people who can offer different perspectives, whether they're clinically or based on experience, I think that's when we can make lasting change. That's when we can really, really dig into some of the problems and the issues that people in the community might have, because they might be willing to go to a D. Reed or a Reggie before they even step foot into a Dr. Reynolds' office, right? And that's not saying that no position is above the other. It's just saying it's different. It's different disciplines. It's different ways in which we touch people. And I do believe, the Weeping Prophet was saying, that we have to cast our cares, and kind of going from that spiritual angle. I think there's an anointing for all of it. I think just as God anoints people to be a therapist, he can anoint the psychologist, he can anoint the social worker, he can anoint the advocate, so that we all can play a role in providing healing to our communities. So again, what y'all are saying here is dope, is valuable, and I love it. And kind of going further into that. So I want y'all to talk a little bit more. Y'all already kind of alluded to this before, but to those who might be listening, especially the women who are listening, you said that Black Men Heal was developed by women who were hurt in some way or shape or form by a man, right? So whether that was emotionally or what have you. I'm wondering, for the women out there who are listening, who are trying to figure out their partners, they're trying to figure out their fathers, trying to figure out their uncles and their cousins and nephews or what have you. I wonder, like, what can you tell them about how Black men express emotion, or like barriers to them expressing emotion, why they're experiencing some of the things they're experiencing?
Well, I think it's the fact that, we're always taught to be the provider, just like I said, to put everything on our shoulders. So, in that, there's no complaining. The only thing we do is work. Only thing we want to do is to take care of our family. But what I will tell women is you got to be careful with Black men, because even as we get it all the time, Black men, well, my husband, he need therapy. We need to sign him up today. Well, sis, you can sign him up, but he has to be able, it takes courage to go see somebody in regards to therapy, to talk about your problems and your trauma. So I would suggest that they walk with them to get that healing, because it's not going to happen overnight, and you can't push. In any relationship, when you got somebody pushing, then it brings on the dissension, it brings on the discord, and it causes problems in relationship. So only thing I would tell women is to walk with the brother. And then what happens, though, a lot of times they get frustrated, because it's like, yo, how long do I got to walk with this guy? But then we got to make sure that he's surrounded with a good nucleus of friends, and he has a accountability partner as well.
For sure, accountability is key.
I'll add to that too, and that's why I love me and Unc's dynamic, because the easiest answer to say from my perspective is that as young men, we don't have the guidance to have the conversation with our spouses about how we feel. We don't have the vocab, the knowledge, the tools. And then looking back, I just celebrated a birthday, and looking back into my earlier years of like expressing emotions, it always was met with putting someone else's first. Like and I'll give you a prime example. When I was there to support my wife when we were having our firstborn child, I wasn't even credited and supported and being a father in the room. And so it was like I wasn't acknowledged. It was like they were almost trained of a father not being in the room. And so I was just almost like chopped liver of like, even though I'm there to try to support the needs and different things, they didn't come to me about any information about the kid or anything. Mind you got this person pushing a human through them right now. So you would think if the support system of the person that helped created it is there, you would, reach and lean onto them for support. but I think it's a system that doesn't value the contributions of a man. We just talked about Father's Day. I ain't see as many commercials. I was looking for gift baskets on the corner of gas stations for people to get the last minute gifts for the father. It wasn't none. Like it wasn't none out there. So even if we do get gifts, it's like, all right, let's get dad some socks or let's get dad some things. And where mom is like, no, make sure you get mom the world. I've been just as present and with as a father as the mother has, but it doesn't feel, there's not a space. Again, going back to own perspective, I am learning right now in this moment that your feelings don't matter. Now, again, I'm in the blessing of being in an organization like Black Men Hill, but that's not reality. There's not safe spaces everywhere for me to say that, but I'm taught to say, yo, make sure the children is cool, make sure the wife is cool, and then you worry about your needs later. And that, I don't think that always is the best practices when you're saying like, hey, no, we want to hear about your feelings. No, you don't, because look at what's around.
Yeah. So I wonder though, so based on what you're talking about in terms of like fathers being in the room, that was pretty much a metaphor of how Black men, especially Black fathers, are treated in America, right? Black women being incentivized for not having Black men in the home, right? So this is a pattern of the ways in which society treats Black men, especially Black fathers. And that made me think about even preparing for Father's Day. I think it was like Edible Arrangements or something. They sent an email out saying that, hey, we understand everybody doesn't celebrate Father's Day, but if you want to opt out of these emails, just click this button. And I'm like, wow, I didn't see this email for Mother's Day. And it really just speaks to the fact of like fathers aren't as valued. And as both of you, and D. Reed, I think you're a father as well, right? You have
Yes.
children. Yeah. I wonder, like, as a father, as a Black man, as a Black father, how important is it for you to express emotion, to be vulnerable in front of your children, to talk about emotion, for them to see you going to therapy and being a part of Black Men Hill? Like why is that important?
You had a conversation with your daughter. Go
ahead. It's very important to me, and actually, even that emotion or just being vulnerable to have that conversation, because my kids are grown. So, and I get divorced. I've been married for 11 years now. So I had to have that hard conversation with my daughter, as Red said, and I had to listen, because I think what happens is, in being a parent, we take on the role so much of being a parent and not listening to our children. So we have to have enough sense to be able to have that conversation and be able to listen to what is being said, because they're adults. One thing that I've learned too, when I remember I was coaching my kids, my son, baseball. He's running around acting a fool. When your kid acting a fool, it's like, no, my kid don't do that. And a guy walked up to me. He said, "What's the problem?" I said, "My son walking around." He said, "Well, what makes him different than any other kid?" And I thought about it. I was like, "Nothing." He said, "You know what? So let a kid be a kid." So now when we take that into account, that's when we talk about this relationship. We talking about the communication. Red's talking about Unc. I mean, we come from different generations. I'm a baby boomer, but that communication is vital, because now we can't take the stereotype. You know me, I'm a baby boomer. I can't multitask. I can't do anything. For me to talk to a millennial, it's like, look, y'all trying to do too much. Like, slow down. You know what I mean? So that I think we need to take account that we are human beings, and we need to actually communicate with each other. And being a father, you have the tendency to, I know I did, and this is just through life, being, I'm a military guy, so I was always stern. And then you got to even be careful with that. But, because now the children, at one time they used to say I was an Incredible Hulk, because, when I get mad, but then, I know my youngest son, he went with me on a couple different things. I used to work with nonprofits. And then, like I said, I'll shed tears, and he got an opportunity to see that. But yet, he also knew who I was. He knew I was a strong Black man, but yet I was able to shed the tears and come right back and still maintain that vulnerability and still maintain that strength.
That's so important, for you to be able to like shed the tears and for your children to actually see it. Mm-hmm. That's one thing I actually preach to the parents that I provide and the families that I provide therapy to. How can we expect children to be comfortable with their emotions? How can we expect children to be expressive with their emotions if parents, they're not modeling how to express emotions. They're not modeling, when to express anger, sadness, happy, and appropriate ways of coping with that. And I think that that's even more valuable for sons and daughters to see their Black male fathers doing the same thing, especially when society tells us that Black men don't have emotions, or the only emotion that's okay for Black men to express is anger, right? And so you all dismantling those notions, I think, is so important to the well-being of our children. And if you want to strengthen, yeah, go ahead.
Can I add to that? This
Go
is the
ahead.
difference in the age bracket. So I am now at the space as a father. I am struggling with that. Because so much of the identity of a man and father is structured in being stern and firm and teaching him how to, boom, 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 and being structured and teaching him values of life, that I haven't learned to navigate being gentle on him as well, and without, quote unquote, making him too soft where people take advantage of him. And so I'm still learning that because I know the stigma of being an angry Black dad and you taking out the world problem and bringing it home and trying to figure out that balance. So I'm currently in that phase of trying to balance and wear both hats. And it's tough because, again, when you don't know, and parenting doesn't come with a rule book, and so you're just trying the best with as you can. But I probably lean more towards the stern side as I do the vulnerable side. But I think experience and seeing D Reed, as much as I seen him cry in the vulnerable spaces, he ain't seen me shed one tear yet. And that's because I haven't learned to unlock that emotional vulnerability while still being able to be seen as a stern man.
Can I be honest with you, Reggie? Because no, we're just gonna have a real life vulnerable moment. I can hear that you haven't tapped into it when you were like, well, I'm learning my emotions don't matter. I didn't want to call it out because this ain't a therapy session, but I could hear that. I could definitely hear that. So can D Reed, can I call you Unc?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So because this is where it gets good. Unc, we have a generational gap here, right? So we have someone who's are you millennial or Gen Z?
Millennial.
You're a millennial, okay. So we have a millennial Black father and we have a baby boomer Black father. And so the millennial Black father just expressed how he's uncomfortable with kind of like that the gentle aspects of like parenting and providing emotional support out of the fear of his children like not being quote unquote soft, right? Because we don't want them to be taken advantage of or to be too vulnerable with the people who would take advantage of that vulnerability. So I'm wondering, can you provide some message or some sort of advice to Reggie who's struggling with that? Because I feel like listeners might be listening to this and they might be in the same shoes as Reggie.
Well, one of the things that I do is I try to set that example for Reggie, and then he'll question me all the time in reference to how I'm feeling. One thing that I've learned is, your feelings are accurate. You know what I mean? But your feelings are valid, but they're not always accurate.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So his feelings are definitely valid, and it actually goes right into what we're getting ready to do with our King's Corner tour. All right, can we jump in the gun a little bit? But our tour is called Black Men Need Hugs Tour. So we're actually going to talk about the meaning behind why Black men need hugs. The fact that maybe they didn't grow up with a father, or maybe the fact that just the anger of not feeling loved by their family members. So only thing I can do for Reg, and we talk about all the time, is set the example. And I can only give him my opinion and my experience. I try to give him the experience because I think he's able to identify more with the experience rather than me just talking.
Okay.
And to his point, he always say, I can just tell you. What you do with that is on you, but I can just tell you what I think. And there's been plenty of times where I'm like, yo, man, I ain't talking to the wifey. I'm gonna separate over here or doing this. He's like, just give her a call and let her know you. I ain't doing that, ish, man. I ain't doing that. and I again, I guess that's the emotional maturity that comes with age and experience and time. And because it's something that I do aim for. But to his point about your feelings being valid, I don't even care if it's wrong in the moment. This is what I feel is right. and I'm going to go with that option, even though I know it's wrong, even though tomorrow when I wake up, even when I'm past these anger in a few hours. And that's the worst part. And that's why I said I'm old enough to know better, but young enough to still relate. Because sometimes I don't care. Like, I just want to do what what feel right in that moment. And I know for a fact it's not the best decision. Like, in my angered or emotional state, I know it's not the best decision, but I understand why I'm making that decision.
And
Yeah,
that's why it's so important for Black men to be respected and honored. I mean, that is one of the main reasons that I've learned, because we got to be able to show the respect. We got to be able to show the honor. We got to let these guys know that we care about them.
for sure. And I think that that's such an amazing segue into our Black Men Heal segment, and kind of talking more about Black men, and how we can kind of continue to show up for them, especially the event that y'all are having, Black Men Need Hugs. So if you all can kind of talk more about that and provide us that information, because I feel like the listeners are dying to hear that now.
Well, I'll say this: you are an amazing host, because that was a great transition right
I,
there, and it was smooth, because even coming out of parenting, and having that conversation, I realized that I don't hug my children. I don't kiss. I don't hug. I don't show any, loving affectionate besides providing and protecting as much as I think anyway. And it's because I don't even know what that looks like for me. So I cannot give something that my dad or an older male or a mentor has never given me. And my mom was a woman that came from the islands. I'm a first generation American, so the Caribbean has its own, way of dealing with life. And then when you come over here and you got to fight for everything and you got to, earn everything, her love was providing. And so if I don't have a gentle bone in my body because I was never given it, it's hard for me to, give it back. So hence why, one of the slogans with that even Black Men Hill started was Black Men Need Hugs. Just, I never felt like a bear hug from a man. Like, I felt and D Reed, you can get into the types of hugs, but I never felt that, level of love from a person that I valued, and felt that they value me back. And so I know I'm not alone in that experience. And we wanted to highlight that within this tour, and going into the communities. And it was like, how many other brothers feel that same way? How many other brothers just need a hug from another brother to know that they're valued and they loved and they respected? And it's different from a woman. It's almost actually, and Doctor, you could tell me, that safe and nurturing feel that a woman probably feels when a certain type of man hugs them. That's probably what a lot of men want to feel too. That safe and nurturing feeling of protection, and it's like, no, I got you, I love you, and things like that. I think we probably want to feel that as well, but it's not often given, if that makes sense. But I'll turn it over to D Reed to explain the tour as well.
Well, I'll go back a little bit, talk about Black Men Heal as far as, when it started. It's 2018. And, and the mission behind Black Men Heal was to remove the stigma around mental health, cultural competency, providing a therapist and client of color together, and, of course, providing the free therapy. And one of the things that we found out in 2020 was that after the death of George Floyd, we had such a backlog of men wanting the free therapy. So we had to come up like, what can we do? I mean, what is it that we can do? So we came up with our King's Corner, which is a virtual free space. We do it every Sunday at 7 p.m. We've been rocking this thing for over 2 years. We talk about everything that affect Black men. And one of the things that we found out in this space, like I said before, one of the things we found out in this space, that Black men just want to come in there and just be vulnerable, be able to share. And because a lot of times we found out that they can't, maybe they can't share it at home. They can come in this space. And once again, we talk about 35, 40 guys on the call and open themselves up, and there's no judgment. So now we got this opportunity. We did it last year. We had a short tour, Philadelphia, Richmond, and New York. This year, with more money and sponsorship, and with the Black Men Need Hugs, we're going out. We're talking about, it's more about the respect and acknowledgement. So when we talk about the respect and the acknowledgement, we're going back to the basic. We're going back to the head nod. Like you say, we say what's up. That's the acknowledgement of a brother. Like, okay, yeah. Then we go into the handshake. We discovered and found out that even with the history of the handshake, that happened in the Vietnam War, where brothers were in the war. That was their way of expressing the brotherly love within themselves. And then we learned about the hugs. We learned about the side hug. We learned about the half hug, and we learned about the full embrace. So we're going out to show these brothers, going back to the basics. We talk about that foundation. We're going back to that foundation to actually rebuild these brothers, to inspire them, to motivate them, to help them become a better man, and to set the example. You said there's a generation gap. Reg is the millennial, I'm the baby boomer. To show you two different opinions and how we approach it, but yet we're able to affect the masses.
It seems like I need to be at this Black Men Hill. I know I'm not a black man, but the way y'all are describing it, like it seems like there's going to be a lot of information disseminated, and people are going to really learn about vulnerability, how we can be vulnerable, and like the different levels of that. So yeah, it sounds like an amazing event. Can y'all tell us when it's going to be?
Reg, I was going to say cover that and cover the self-care station.
Yeah, so it's going to be, so I don't know when the episode is coming out, but it's going to be the June 25th. We are in current stages of planning the next cities, which will be Atlanta, Chicago, Houston. Tentatively right now, we're still working out the final details for that, but we're trying to expand it and keep on hitting the cities and talking to the men about different conversations. Like D. Reed said, that side hug, I didn't even realize that what that side hug meant. Like, I don't know you too much, but I want to show you some respect, some love. The full embrace is like, yo, I really support you and I really trust you and then embrace you. And then what's the half hug or whatever the case may be is like, I dap you on the back. I got that. Like we showing some type of love to each other. But yeah, we're gonna have free food, self-care stations. We having a masseuse. I think who else is in? Oh, yoga and meditation. And it's just gonna be a nice time to network, fellowship, and be in that safe space that we're all looking for. Well, one thing we find out with King's Corner is it could be your first session, your 5th, your 20th, your 2-year anniversary of being in the space from the beginning. They always feel valued in the space because it's a collective of men that's having conversations about things that matter to the men. And I think that is the unique thing that is happening in that space, because it's not happening everywhere, where these are men that don't know each other. They're getting on a computer with some people that they met from California. We got people from California staying up. We got people in New Zealand, Canada, the country thing is when I looked at the numbers, it's really all over the place. I think I seen like it was just some wild Honolulu, like it just people that's staying in the space that's all and from different and all walks of life coming in that space. And we've been doing it virtually for 2 years, but these past few ones we've been trying to keep creating and come in person to love on each other and embrace. And we every time we see any brother in a different city that we only seen virtually for a certain amount of time, they embrace us like we've known them forever, because you build that and you see how love connections can be made online. We bring in fellowship and brotherhood online and bringing it in person as well.
Man, bringing in fellowship online and bringing it in person. I think that's so important, especially as, the things that we've experienced during the pandemic, people feeling so isolated, right? I know there are a lot of people out there who might not even know how to be vulnerable. They don't know how to like accept a hug or to even give a hug, because the anxiety associated with like social settings, especially since the pandemic, has like been through the roof. So I think the degrees of dopeness that this is like multifaceted, if I could put it that way, because I think that so many people are going to be impacted by this. So y'all said it's on June the 25th. What day is that?
Saturday.
That's a Saturday. Okay. All right. So I'm going to definitely try to get the episode out before that, because I want people to come out to y'all's event. So listeners, that means y'all getting 2 episodes this week. So to bear with me, it might not be edited and chopped up perfectly. But y'all still gonna love me. So no, I appreciate y'all's time. Like y'all have been amazing. Reggie, Unc, I'm gonna start calling you that from now on. I hope.
Yeah, they all do, so it's cool.
But let us know where we can find y'all. Reggie, I didn't forget about that book, so when you're closing out, make sure you tell us about it.
Yeah, you can actually find me. I'm on all social media streams. Douglas underscore M Reed on Instagram, of course, Black Man Hill, all social media streams. And just reach out. We're always willing to talk. We, DM us, whatever. We'll definitely get back to you. We're just trying to love on the people.
Yeah, myself at Blackman Hill, we use the Blackman Hill page, but also at Reginald A. Howard, same way my name is spelled. To follow me personally, I do answer and have conversations around there, especially at podcasts. I'm putting my bid in for Dr. Chanda to come on my podcast too. Like I'm putting the bid in now. And then as far as the book is called Suffering into Success, a paradigm shift or struggle to achieve happiness, and that basically talks about how everyone wants success, but no one wants to struggle to get there. And I use analogies like a woman having a baby, like they're ready to put their body through stretch marks and back aches and sleepless nights and things of that nature for the goal of getting the baby, which is worth the 9 months that they have to go through that. The going into the gym, breaking your muscles down. Your muscles literally have to break in order for them to be built stronger and get the ideal body. And then the last one that really got me was when I found out how a diamond is formed. And it starts off as a piece of rock. It gotta go. People die in them diamond mines trying to get it. It go to some heat and pressure. And then at the end of it, you get this beautiful diamond that everyone loves and cherishes. But you got to go through all of those other things to get to that. And so that was just using some of the analogies that I learned along the way, encompassed it with my story, and hoping that people have a different take on struggles and suffering, and hopefully, putting it in a different viewpoint because the success would be worth it.
That's my nephew.
Amazing. Y'all have been amazing guests. And if people can't go to the actual event, how can they support you all from where they are?
Of course, one of the major things is like they can always donate to a nonprofit organization, and the money goes toward the free therapy of Black men. But definitely stay in tune to follow us on social media, because we will have a videographer there. We will be doing some footage. I think me and Reg will probably do some lives to kind of keep people abreast as far as what we're doing. So, through our social media channels, you can find us across, even on TikTok. You can follow us across the board.
Sharing. And if you're a man, you can join our King's Corner Sundays when we're not on tour and we're not, in different cities. We there every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then also we have the group for the ladies called Hill with Him. That women can join as well, and it's the woman version of what King's Corner is. And just supporting, sharing, and liking, and tell somebody about Black Man Hill, because that if you don't spend a dime, just sharing and letting a person know is worth it just as much.
Absolutely.
Awesome. I'm so happy that y'all had a chance to drop by. It's definitely been a pleasure hosting the both of you.
Hey, well, we appreciate you.
Absolutely. And for those of you who are watching, make sure that you connect with these two gentlemen. They always have things going on, especially for Black men, and we definitely need that in our communities. If we want to strengthen the Black community, we have to start with the Black family. If we want to strengthen the Black family, we have to deal with Black fathers. So I'm appreciative of y'all both. And so make sure y'all follow them. And don't forget, y'all, catch me next Wednesday, and you have the power to create the emotions that you want to experience. All right, God bless.